31 secret weapons that actually existed. What if I told you the craziest weapons in video games were just copying homework from history? We're talking about actual military hardware that sounds like it came from a sci-fi writer's fever dream but was built, tested, and sometimes actually used in combat. Bat bombs, earthquake machines, pigeon-guided missiles, sound cannons that liquefy your insides. These aren't rejected Call of Duty DLC concepts. These are declassified military projects that your tax dollars funded while engineers asked, could we? Without stopping to ask, should we? This is 31 secret weapons that actually existed, proving that reality has no quality control department and military budgets have no adult supervision. Because apparently, every supervillain scheme you've ever seen was just a documentary waiting to be declassified. Number 1. Bat bombs were a real World War II project. During World War II, a dental surgeon convinced the U.S. military to develop bombs carried by bats. Project X-Ray involved attaching tiny incendiary devices to Mexican free-tailed bats, cooling them into hibernation, loading thousands into bomb casings, and dropping them over Japanese cities at dawn. The bats would wake up, scatter into attics and buildings, and the timers would ignite fires across an entire city simultaneously. It actually worked in testing, too well. The bats escaped during a test at Carlsbad Army Airfield and burned down the entire base, including a general's car. The military built specialized bat housing, developed tiny napalm devices, and had over 1 million bats ready for deployment. The project was canceled only because the atomic bomb was ready first and was more efficient. The U.S. military genuinely planned to weaponize mammals with tiny firebombs. World War II could have been won by flying rodents committing arson. Someone got promoted for suggesting this. Number 2. The Nazis built a sound cannon. Nazi Germany developed the Schallkanon, a sound cannon using methane and oxygen explosions in parabolic reflectors to create devastating acoustic shockwaves. The concept was that concentrated sound waves could rupture organs, cause severe pain, and incapacitate enemies without conventional ammunition. They actually built working prototypes. Test results showed it could kill small animals at 50 meters and cause extreme discomfort to humans at 200 meters. The weapon produced sound estimated near 1,000 decibels, enough to vibrate tissue apart. It was impractical for actual warfare because it was massive, consumed huge amounts of fuel, had limited range, and was basically a giant target screaming, "Shoot me first." But it functioned. Nazi engineers built a weapon that killed with noise. The engineering was sound, pun intended, but logistics were terrible. World War II had actual sonic weapons before video games invented them. Science fiction keeps plagiarizing history. Number 3. Project Pigeon-guided missiles with birds. Behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner developed Project Pigeon during World War II, a missile guidance system using pigeons trained to peck at targets on a screen. 3 pigeons inside the missile nose cone would peck at an image of the target, and their pecking controlled the missile's flight path through a system of levers. The pigeons were trained to recognize enemy ships and would guide the missile by pecking toward the target image. It actually worked in testing with remarkable accuracy. The Navy funded development through multiple phases. Skinner demonstrated that pigeons could reliably guide missiles better than early mechanical systems. The project was eventually canceled because electronic guidance systems became available, not because it didn't work. The U.S. military seriously considered avian-guided munitions, kamikaze pigeons. Someone calculated that training birds was more cost-effective than developing computers. They weren't wrong at the time. Weirdest thing is it would have worked. Number 4. The Soviets tested Tesla's earthquake machine. Nikola Tesla claimed to have built a mechanical oscillator that could cause structural resonance and demolish buildings, an earthquake machine. The Soviets took this seriously. During the Cold War, Soviet scientists developed seismic weapons designed to trigger earthquakes or create destructive vibrations using nuclear explosions or mechanical resonators. Declassified documents show they tested devices designed to create artificial seismic events. The theory is valid. Match an object's resonant frequency, and you can destroy it with relatively small energy input. Whether they successfully created tactical earthquake weapons is still classified, but they definitely tried. The US also researched similar concepts. Both superpowers explored weaponizing geology. Tesla's earthquake machine wasn't fantasy, it was physics. The Soviets just had less ethical restraint about testing it. Cold War arms racing included literal earth-shaking weapons. Tectonic warfare was on the table. Number 5. Ancient Greeks built a death ray. Archimedes supposedly defended Syracuse from Roman ships by using mirrors to focus sunlight and set ships on fire at distance, the legendary heat ray. Modern historians dismissed this until MIT students actually built it and proved it works. Using bronze shields as mirrors, coordinated crews can focus enough sunlight to ignite wooden ships at 50+ meters. The myth was confirmed through practical testing. Ancient Greeks had the materials, mathematical knowledge, and desperation to attempt this. Whether Archimedes actually did it is debatable, but the weapon is absolutely feasible with ancient technology. You can build a functional death ray with nothing but polished metal and geometry. Ancient solar-powered laser analog. The Greeks discovered concentrated solar power as a weapon 2,000 years before we tried using it for electricity. Mythbusters confirmed it works under the right conditions. Ancient weapons technology was terrifyingly creative. Number 6. The US military created gay bombs. This sounds like satire but is a documented fact. The US Air Force's Wright Laboratory proposed a halitosis bomb and gay bomb in 1994, chemical weapons that would make enemy soldiers sexually irresistible to each other, causing discipline breakdown. The idea was to spray concentrated pheromones over enemy troops, causing homosexual behavior that would disrupt military cohesion. The Pentagon actually considered funding this. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests confirm the proposal was submitted with a requested $7.5 million budget. It was rejected not on ethical grounds, but because the science was implausible. The military seriously entertained weaponizing sexual attraction. Someone wrote a formal proposal suggesting we could defeat enemies by making them too distracted to fight. This was a real Department of Defense document. The gay bomb is official military history. We live in a timeline where government scientists propose this with straight faces, still less weird than bat bombs. Number 7. World War II, Japan launched balloon bombs across the Pacific. Japan's Fugo balloon bombs were high-altitude balloons carrying incendiary and explosive devices, launched from Japan to drift across the Pacific on jet stream winds and land randomly across North America. Between 1944 and 1945, Japan launched approximately 9,000 balloon bombs. About 1,000 reached North America, landing from Alaska to Mexico. They caused forest fires, power outages, and killed 6 people in Oregon, the only World War II combat deaths on the U.S. mainland. The balloons used sophisticated altitude control systems with sandbags and hydrogen cells, automatically maintaining optimal altitude for trans-Pacific flight. This was intercontinental warfare using weather patterns and paper balloons. The U.S. government censored all media reports to prevent Japan from knowing they worked, denying them the ability to adjust tactics. Japan built the first intercontinental weapons system using hydrogen balloons and prevailing winds. Low-tech brilliance meets strategic stupidity, almost no military value but psychologically terrifying. Random death from the sky with no warning. Worst lottery ever. Number 8. The Nazis built a wind cannon. Nazi Germany developed the Wirbelwindkanone, a vortex gun that fired artificial tornadoes. The weapon used explosive charges to create rapidly spinning vortex rings of air traveling at high velocity. In theory, these vortices could knock aircraft out of the sky or demolish structures. The Nazis actually built and tested prototypes. The device could allegedly disrupt aircraft at several hundred meters by creating sudden extreme turbulence. Practical testing showed mixed results. It worked on paper targets and models but was ineffective against actual aircraft in combat conditions. The weapon was abandoned because it was massive, had terrible range, and was hilariously impractical compared to conventional anti-aircraft guns. But Nazi engineers legitimately tried to shoot down planes with artificial tornadoes, weaponized weather. The concept is sound physics. Vortex rings carry significant energy, but execution was impractical. World War II technology could not make it work effectively, but modern science confirms the principle is valid. The Nazis tried to build an airbender. Number 9. The U.S. Army tested LSD on soldiers. Project MK Ultra included military experiments dosing soldiers with LSD without their knowledge or consent to test its potential as a weapon and truth serum. Declassified documents and testimony confirmed the CIA and Army Chemical Corps administered LSD to thousands of soldiers, prisoners, and civilians from the 1950s through the 1970s. They wanted to weaponize hallucinations. Imagine dosing enemy water supplies or using it for interrogation. Some tests involved giving massive doses to see if they could create chemical lobotomies. Soldiers were dosed and then subjected to combat training to see if it impaired performance or made them more suggestible. Several subjects died or suffered permanent psychological damage. The full extent remains classified. The U.S. military tested psychedelic weapons on its own troops without consent. Weaponized acid trips. The ultimate bad trip was government-sponsored. Military intelligence wanted to turn LSD into a weapon and used American citizens and soldiers as test subjects. Mind control through chemistry was official policy. Number 10. Ancient armies used corpse catapults. Medieval and ancient siege warfare included launching diseased corpses over castle walls to spread plague. This isn't myth. Historical records from multiple cultures describe biological warfare via catapult. The Mongols catapulted plague-infected bodies into the city of Kaffa in 1346, potentially starting the Black Death spread into Europe. Romans, Greeks, and medieval armies all documented using dead animals and humans as siege weapons. The goal was spreading disease, contaminating water supplies, and psychological warfare. It worked. Defenders facing rotting corpses raining from the sky experienced both disease outbreaks and morale collapse. This is documented in siege accounts from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Biological warfare is thousands of years old. Ancient armies discovered germ warfare before discovering germs. They didn't understand epidemiology, they just knew dead bodies made people sick, so they weaponized corpses. Plague catapults were standard siege tactics, history's most disgusting artillery. 11. The Soviets built Ekranoplans, flying ships. The Lung-class Ekranoplan was a massive ground-effect vehicle, part plane, part ship. Weighing 400 tons, it carried cruise missiles and flew 340 mph just meters above the water, invisible to radar because it flew below the horizon. NATO nicknamed it the Caspian Sea Monster. The Soviets built multiple functional Ekranoplans for transport and missile launch. Exploiting ground effect, they achieved extra lift, allowing these massive vehicles to fly efficiently at low altitude. The technology worked, but it was expensive and specialized. The USSR created planeship hybrids that looked like sci-fi vehicles, but they were real military hardware. Flying warships weren't just imagination, they were Soviet engineering reality. 12. Project Habakkuk, an aircraft carrier made of ice. During WWII, Britain proposed unsinkable aircraft carriers made of pickrete, a mixture of ice and wood pulp that was incredibly strong, buoyant, and slow-melting. These floating ice fortresses would provide mid-Atlantic air cover for convoys. A working prototype survived an entire summer on a Canadian lake. Churchill even demonstrated pickrete's toughness by shooting a block. It bounced the bullet off. The project was cancelled due to the enormous resource requirements and D-Day making it unnecessary. But the concept worked. Britain almost had ice battleships. Someone literally calculated that frozen sawdust water mixture was cheaper than steel. Coolest cancelled project ever, literally. 13. The Nazis developed infrared night vision. Nazi Germany created the first practical infrared night vision system for combat, the Zielgerät 1229 Vampire. Deployed in 1945, it allowed soldiers to see in complete darkness using active infrared illumination. The system included an infrared spotlight and scope, giving Germans a major advantage in night combat. Heavy and limited in range, only about 300 units were deployed before the war ended. Still, this revolutionary technology turned night into day decades before night vision became standard. WWII could have gone very differently if deployed earlier. Nazis made seeing in the dark a reality. 14. Ancient Chinese used flamethrowers in 900 AD. While Greek fire gets attention, China had the fire lance centuries earlier. Bamboo tubes filled with gunpowder projected flames and shrapnel. By 919 AD, proto-flamethrowers were in use over 1,000 years before modern flamethrowers. They evolved into metal tubes shooting fire up to 10 feet, and later versions fired flames, poison gas, and projectiles. Ancient Chinese armies were centuries ahead in pyrotechnic warfare. Soldiers carried dragonhead tubes that shot fire and death. While Europe relied on crossbows, China weaponized flames. Chemical and incendiary warfare is ancient. 15. The U.S. developed a heart attack gun. The CIA's heart attack gun was revealed in 1975 congressional testimony. It fired a frozen dart with shellfish toxin, penetrating clothing and skin, melting inside the body, leaving virtually no trace, and causing a heart attack indistinguishable from natural causes. The dart was tiny, the poison metabolized quickly, and the weapon used compressed air with a range of about 100 meters. CIA Director William Colby presented it during hearings. This was a real, functional assassination device designed to kill untraceably. History's most terrifying confirmed government secret. 16. WWII allies created fake armies. Operation Fortitude produced a completely fictional army, the first United States Army group, FUSEG, to trick Germany about the D-Day invasion. This wasn't just propaganda. They built full-scale fake equipment, inflatable tanks, dummy aircraft, fake supply depots, and even staged radio traffic and sound recordings of tanks moving. General Patton commanded this phantom force. German intelligence completely bought it, keeping 15 divisions away from Normandy. The Allies won with stagecraft and props, inflatable weapons of mass deception. Someone calculated fake armies were cheaper than real casualties. WWII victory involved theatrical brilliance. 17. The Soviets trained anti-tank dogs. The Soviet Union trained dogs to carry explosives under enemy tanks during WWII. Dogs were starved, trained to find food under vehicles, then strapped with explosives to attack German tanks. In practice, many ran back to Soviet trenches, fled gunfire, or went the wrong way. Some succeeded in destroying German tanks. Thousands were deployed with mixed results. Stalin approved weaponizing pets. Explosive dogs were horrifying, occasionally effective and real. The Eastern Front had suicide bomber dogs. Soviet desperation met terrifying ideas. 18. Ancient armies used war elephants as living tanks. Hannibal's war elephants crossing the Alps are famous, but elephants were sophisticated military technology for centuries. Armored, carrying troops in towers and charging enemy lines like living battering rams, they weighed several tons and could trample infantry and horses alike. Carthage, India, and Persia deployed hundreds in major battles. Elephants weren't just intimidation. They were tactical assets with tusk-mounted weapons and protective armor. They were the ancient world's ultimate cavalry, living, breathing tanks powered by hay instead of gasoline. Over 2,000 years, elephants were frontline military hardware. 19. The U.S. Navy built a Sea Shadow stealth ship. The Sea Shadow was a stealth ship designed to be invisible to radar, essentially a naval stealth bomber. Built in secret in the 1980s, hidden inside a submersible barge, it used angular surfaces to deflect radar like the F-117 fighter. It looked like a sci-fi prop but worked. The vessel influenced later designs like Zumwalt-class destroyers. The Navy built a ship designed to disappear from radar, proved it worked, then scrapped it due to cost. Maritime stealth technology turned sci-fi into reality. 20. Medieval armies used caltrops, ancient tire spikes. Caltrops are four-pointed metal spikes designed so one point always faces up. Scattered on the ground, they disable cavalry, infantry, and even modern vehicles. Romans, medieval defenders, and modern militaries all used caltrops. Simple, cheap, and effective, their design hasn't changed for thousands of years. Ancient anti-cavalry mines became modern tire deflation devices. The ultimate if it ain't broke, don't fix it weapon. Technology that defeated horses now defeats Humvees. 21. Project Azorian recovered a Soviet submarine. During the Cold War, the CIA built the Hughes Glomar Explorer to secretly recover a sunken Soviet nuclear submarine from 16,000 feet deep in the Pacific. Disguised as a commercial mining operation funded by Howard Hughes, the project succeeded in partially recovering K-129 in 1974, including nuclear warheads, codebooks, and equipment. The operation cost over $800 million. The CIA built a giant claw capable of lifting thousands of tons from the ocean floor. Even most crew members didn't know the real mission. The USSR never discovered the theft. Cold War espionage included ocean floor heists. They literally stole a submarine from 3 miles underwater. Most expensive theft in history. 22. The Nazis built a train-mounted supergun. The Schwerer Gustav was the largest artillery piece ever built. A railway gun weighing 1,350 tons, firing 7-ton shells up to 29 miles. It required 500 men to operate and took weeks to assemble. Used at the Siege of Sevastopol, it destroyed Soviet fortifications, penetrating 23 feet of concrete. Only 2 were completed. One was destroyed by Germans to avoid capture. Nazi over-engineering peaked with this railway-mounted supergun, massive, resource-intensive, and perfectly functional. A gun bigger than most buildings. 23. The U.S. tested nuclear-powered aircraft. Project Pluto developed nuclear-powered cruise missiles, the Supersonic Low-Altitude Missile, SLAM. Its engine was an unshielded nuclear reactor heating air for propulsion. Flying at Mach 3 at treetop level, it could drop nuclear warheads and continue as a radioactive battering ram. Tests proved the nuclear ramjet engine worked, but the project was canceled. It was too terrifying even by Cold War standards. Radioactive exhaust, sonic destruction, and unstoppable flight made it a doomsday device. Cold War superweapon, nuclear-powered and terrifying. 24. Ancient Rome had a Swiss Army knife. Roman soldiers carried multi-purpose folding tools, bronze implements combining knife, spike, spatula, fork, and pick. Archaeology shows tools with 15+ functions in a single compact device. Romans understood soldiers needed versatile equipment for eating, maintenance, and repairs. Essentially, the Swiss Army knife is ancient technology. Modern multi-tools are reinventing Roman ingenuity. Legionaries carried pocket tools combining utensils, weapons, and repair implements, millennia before Victorinox. 25. DARPA developed cyborg insects. DARPA's hybrid insect microelectromechanical systems, HIMEMS, project implanted electronics into insects during the pupal stage, creating cyborg beetles and moths. The insects grow around implants, allowing remote-controlled flight and sensor data transmission. Successfully demonstrated in 2009, this created living surveillance drones. Half-bug, half-machine espionage. Not science fiction, it works. DARPA turned insects into biological drones, combining natural flight with remote control for reconnaissance. 26. Medieval armies used diseased animal corpses in wells. During medieval sieges, armies deliberately contaminated water supplies with dead animals, human waste, and diseased corpses. This wasn't rare. It was a standard tactic across Europe and Asia. Dead horses, plague victims, and animal carcasses were thrown into wells and rivers feeding besieged cities, spreading dysentery, cholera, and plague. Sieges often ended from disease rather than starvation. Medieval armies weaponized decomposition long before germ theory existed. Poisoning water was accepted military doctrine, making corpses a horrifyingly effective weapon. 27. The British built a bouncing bomb. British engineer Barnes Wallis designed the bouncing bomb, spun before release to skip across water like a stone, sink beside a dam, and detonate at precise depth. Operation Chastise in 1943 destroyed multiple German dams. Calculations required exact backspin, release speed, and altitude. The physics solved problems like torpedo nets, letting bombs reach fortified targets. WWII engineering brilliance met old-school ingenuity, skipping bombs across water with precision rotational physics. Legendary raid proves creativity wins wars. 28. The U.S. military experimented with telepathic communication. During the Cold War, the CIA and military intelligence researched psychic phenomena. Project Stargate explored remote viewing, telepathy, and psychokinesis for espionage. Psychics attempted to locate Soviet facilities and influence decisions remotely. The program ran 20-plus years with a $20 million budget. Results were negative, but the military genuinely tested ESP as a weapon. Cold War paranoia included psychic arms races. The U.S. attempted mind reading for intelligence and espionage. 29. Ancient armies used smoke screens. Ancient military texts describe deliberately creating smoke screens by burning damp wood, grass, or other materials to conceal troop movements. Used in Chinese, Greek, and Roman armies, smoke obscured river crossings, retreats, and attacks. Some cultures added toxic plants or sulfur for extra effect. This early chemical warfare created tactical advantage centuries before modern smoke grenades. Controlling visibility was a deliberate military strategy. Ancient armies understood battlefield concealment long before combined arms doctrine existed. 30. The Soviets deployed space weapons. The Almaz program included space stations armed with automatic cannons to defend against American anti-satellite attacks. Salyut 3, launched in 1974, carried a 23mm gun, tested and successfully fired in unmanned operations. The Soviets placed functional weapons in orbit, capable of shooting at approaching spacecraft. Space wasn't just explored, it was militarized. Cold War paranoia extended to orbital warfare. The Soviets had gun-toting space stations before treaties banned such weapons. Orbital combat was real. 31. The U.S. Navy created dolphin soldiers. The U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program trained dolphins and sea lions for military operations, mine detection, equipment recovery, and harbor security. Started in 1960, it's still active. Dolphins locate mines and enemy divers, while sea lions attach restraints to intruders. Their biological sonar surpasses mechanical systems in many tasks. Animals are trained, not controlled. They return voluntarily. The Navy literally has dolphin soldiers deployed in conflicts worldwide. Marine mammals became military assets, biologically optimized for espionage and defense. That's 31 secret weapons that sound like rejected movie plots but were built, tested, and sometimes deployed. From bat bombs to dolphin soldiers, ice aircraft carriers to cyborg insects, military history is a competition to out-crazy the previous generation. The scariest part, we only know what was declassified. Every supervillain plot you've seen was probably a documentary with serial numbers filed off. Reality has no quality control, and military R&D has no adult supervision. Which weapons shocked you most? What projects do you think remain hidden? History proves, if you can imagine a weapon, someone probably already built it, and it's sitting in a classified hangar somewhere. The past was weirder than fiction, and the future will be too.